Marcus Williams walked slowly through the long hallway of Lincoln Elementary School. His thick glasses kept sliding down his small nose. Every few steps he pushed them back up with his finger. The other kids in the hallway stopped talking when they saw him coming. Some pointed at him. Others whispered to their friends and laughed. Marcus was 12 years old, but he looked different from the other kids. He had Down syndrome. This meant his face looked a little different, and he learned things more slowly than other children. His eyes were shaped like almonds, and his tongue sometimes stuck out a little when he was thinking hard about something. The boy wore the same blue jeans and red shirt almost every day. His mother, Sarah Williams, always made sure his clothes were clean and neat. She combed his brown hair carefully each morning before school. Marcus liked his hair to be just right. If even one piece was out of place, he would pat it down with his hand until it felt perfect. Most days at school were hard for Marcus. Reading was difficult. Math problems made his head hurt. Writing took him much longer than everyone else. His pencil felt heavy in his small fingers. The letters he wrote looked wobbly and strange. Sometimes his teacher, Miss Rodriguez, had to help him spell simple words that other kids knew by heart. During lunchtime, Marcus usually sat alone at a table near the back of the cafeteria. He opened his lunchbox carefully and ate his sandwich in small bites. He liked peanut butter and jelly sandwiches best. His mother always cut them into 4 perfect squares because Marcus did not like triangles. He counted the squares before eating them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Always 4. The other kids sat at different tables. They talked loudly about video games, sports, and movies. Sometimes they looked over at Marcus and giggled. He could hear them saying things like weird and different. Marcus pretended not to hear them, but the words made his chest feel tight and sad. After lunch, all the kids went outside for recess. This was the hardest time of day for Marcus. The playground was full of children running, jumping, and playing games. They moved so fast that Marcus could not keep up. When he tried to join a game of tag, the other kids would run away from him. Not because he was it, but because they did not want to play with him. One day, a boy named Tommy laughed when Marcus tried to catch a ball. The ball bounced off Marcus's hands and rolled away. "You throw like a baby," Tommy said. Other kids heard him and started laughing too. Marcus felt his face get hot and red. He wanted to cry, but he did not want the other kids to see his tears. Instead of staying on the playground, Marcus began walking around the school building during recess. He discovered many quiet places where no one bothered him. There was a small garden behind the library where butterflies landed on yellow flowers. There was a bench under a big oak tree where he could watch the clouds move across the sky. But his favorite place was near the music room. The music room had a big window that faced the playground. Marcus could stand outside and look through the glass. Inside the room, he could see rows of chairs and music stands. There were drums in one corner and a guitar hanging on the wall. But what caught Marcus's attention most was the old brown piano that sat near the window. The piano was not fancy or new. Some of the white keys had yellow spots on them. A few of the black keys were chipped. But to Marcus, it was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. He pressed his face against the cool glass and stared at the piano for long minutes. He wondered what sounds it could make. He wondered how someone could touch those keys and create music. Sometimes Mrs. Henderson, the music teacher, was in the room during recess. She was a kind woman with gray hair and a gentle smile. She wore long skirts and comfortable shoes. Marcus watched her organize sheet music and clean the instruments. Once she saw him looking through the window and waved at him. Marcus waved back, but then quickly walked away because he was shy. Mrs. Henderson had been teaching music at Lincoln Elementary for 15 years. She loved all kinds of music, from classical pieces by Mozart to modern songs on the radio. She believed that every child could learn to appreciate music, even if they could not play an instrument. She had taught hundreds of students over the years, but she had never had a student with Down syndrome in her music classes. The school day always ended the same way for Marcus. He gathered his books slowly while the other kids rushed to catch their buses or meet their parents. He double-checked his backpack to make sure he had everything: pencils, eraser, notebook, lunchbox. He counted each item to be sure nothing was missing. His mother always waited for him in the same spot by the front door of the school. Sarah Williams was a patient woman who worked as a nurse at the local hospital. She had to leave work early every day to pick up Marcus. She could have put him on the school bus, but she knew that some of the kids on the bus were not always nice to her son. When Marcus saw his mother waiting, his whole face would light up with a big smile. He would run to her as fast as his legs could carry him. Sarah would hug him tight and ask about his day. Marcus usually said okay or fine, but she could tell from his eyes whether it had been a good day or a bad day. At home, Marcus had his own room with posters of animals on the walls. He liked elephants best because they were big and gentle, just like he wanted to be. After school, he would sit on his bed and look through picture books about elephants in Africa. He knew that elephants were very smart and had good memories. Marcus wished he had a memory like an elephant. His parents, Sarah and David Williams, loved their son very much. They knew that Marcus was special and that he would face challenges that other children did not have. But they also knew that he had gifts that other people could not see. Marcus was kind to everyone, even people who were not kind to him. He noticed small, beautiful things that other people missed, like the way sunlight made patterns on the wall or how raindrops raced down the car window. Every night before bed, Marcus would sit by his bedroom window and look out at the stars. He liked to count them, even though there were too many to count. He would point to each bright star he could see and whisper hello to them. Sometimes he pretended that the stars were piano keys in the sky, and that somewhere up there, angels were playing beautiful music just for him. Marcus did not know it yet, but his life was about to change in a wonderful way. Soon he would discover that the old piano in the music room was not just something to look at through a window. Soon he would learn that his different way of thinking about the world could create something beautiful that no one expected. But for now, he was just a boy who felt lonely and different, dreaming of music while the other kids laughed and played without him. October came to Lincoln Elementary with cool winds and yellow leaves falling from the trees. Marcus still spent his recess time walking around the school building. He still pressed his face against the music room window to look at the old brown piano. But something was different now. The longing in his heart was growing stronger each day. Mrs. Henderson noticed the boy with thick glasses who always stood outside her window. She had asked other teachers about him and learned his name was Marcus Williams. She knew he had Down syndrome and that he was in Miss Rodriguez's special education class. Mrs. Henderson felt sorry that Marcus always looked so lonely during recess. One Tuesday afternoon, Mrs. Henderson was staying late to organize music for the school chorus. The autumn sun was getting low in the sky, and most of the students had gone home on their buses. She was sorting through old sheet music when she heard a strange sound coming from somewhere in her room. The sound was soft and gentle. It was someone humming a tune she recognized. Mrs. Henderson stopped what she was doing and listened carefully. The humming was coming from the direction of the piano. She walked quietly toward the sound and could not believe what she saw. Marcus was sitting on the piano bench. His backpack was on the floor beside him. His thick glasses reflected the afternoon light coming through the window. He was not playing the piano keys, but his small fingers were moving above them, as if he was playing an invisible piano in the air. As his fingers moved, he hummed a simple melody that Mrs. Henderson knew very well. It was, "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." But Marcus was not just humming the basic tune that everyone knew. He was adding little extra notes and changes that made the simple song sound more interesting and beautiful. His humming had a natural rhythm that surprised Mrs. Henderson. It was clear that Marcus could hear music in his mind, even if he was not actually playing the piano. Mrs. Henderson stood very still and watched Marcus for several minutes. She could see that he was completely lost in his own world of music. His face had a peaceful, happy expression that she had never seen on him before. When he was humming and moving his fingers like he was playing piano, Marcus looked like a different person. He looked confident and sure of himself. Finally, Mrs. Henderson cleared her throat softly. Marcus jumped and turned around quickly. When he saw the music teacher standing there, his face turned bright red. He thought he was in trouble for being in the music room without permission. He started to get up from the piano bench, but Mrs. Henderson held up her hand to stop him. "Wait, Marcus," she said in a gentle voice. "You are not in trouble. I heard you humming just now. That was very beautiful. Where did you learn that song?" Marcus pushed his glasses up his nose and looked down at his shoes. He was too shy to answer at first. Mrs. Henderson sat down in a chair near the piano and waited patiently. She had learned that children like Marcus needed extra time to feel comfortable enough to talk. "My mom sings it," Marcus finally whispered. His voice was so quiet that Mrs. Henderson had to lean forward to hear him. She sings it when I go to sleep. But I like to make it sound different. I like to add more notes to make it prettier. Mrs. Henderson smiled. That is wonderful, Marcus. Do you like music? Marcus nodded his head quickly. I love music. I listen to it all the time. I hear music in my head even when there is no radio playing. Sometimes I hear music when I look at the clouds or when I watch the leaves falling from trees. This surprised Mrs. Henderson very much. She had taught music for many years, but she had never met a child who described hearing music in nature the way Marcus just did. She realized that this boy might have a special gift for understanding music that other people could not see. Marcus, would you like to try playing the real piano keys? Mrs. Henderson asked. I could show you how to put your fingers on the right keys to play the song you were humming. Marcus's eyes got very wide behind his thick glasses. He looked at the piano keys, then back at Mrs. Henderson, then at the keys again. Really, I can touch the real piano? I will not break it? Mrs. Henderson laughed softly. No, you will not break it. This piano is very strong. It has been played by hundreds of students over the years. Would you like to try? Marcus nodded so hard that his glasses almost fell off his nose. Mrs. Henderson moved closer to the piano bench and sat beside him. She showed him how to curve his fingers and place them gently on the white keys. Marcus copied everything she did very carefully. Now, said Mrs. Henderson, press this key very gently with your pointer finger. Marcus pressed the key she showed him. A clear, beautiful note rang out in the quiet music room. Marcus gasped and looked at Mrs. Henderson with amazement. I made that sound come out of the piano. Yes, you did, Mrs. Henderson said. And now let's try the next note. For the next 30 minutes, Mrs. Henderson showed Marcus how to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star with one finger. Marcus learned very quickly. His fingers seemed to remember where each note was after she showed him only once. By the end of the lesson, he could play the entire song without help. But what amazed Mrs. Henderson most was that Marcus began adding the same extra notes and changes that he had been humming earlier. Without any teaching, he was creating his own version of the simple song. She had never seen a beginning student do this before. When they finished playing, Marcus had the biggest smile Mrs. Henderson had ever seen on his face. This is the best day of my whole life, he said. I never knew I could make music come out of a real piano. Mrs. Henderson looked at the clock on the wall and realized that Marcus's mother would be wondering where he was. Usually he met her by the front door right after school ended. Now it was almost an hour later. Marcus, we need to go find your mother. She must be worried about you, Mrs. Henderson said. Marcus's happy expression changed to worry. Will she be angry that I was playing piano instead of meeting her at the door? I think she will be very proud of you, Mrs. Henderson said. But we should go explain what happened. They walked together to the front of the school. Sure enough, Sarah Williams was standing by the door looking worried. When she saw Marcus coming with the music teacher, she hurried toward them. Marcus, I was worried about you. You are always at the door when school ends. Is everything okay? Sarah asked. Mrs. Henderson spoke before Marcus could answer. Mrs. Williams, I am sorry Marcus is late. He was in my music room and I lost track of time. I need to tell you something very important about your son. Sarah looked confused and a little scared. She wondered if Marcus had done something wrong in the music room. Your son has a natural gift for music, Mrs. Henderson continued. I found him in my room this afternoon, and he was humming a song with perfect rhythm and adding his own musical ideas to it. When I taught him to play it on the piano, he learned faster than any student I have ever taught. Mrs. Williams, Marcus has real musical talent. Sarah looked at Marcus, who was grinning from ear to ear. She had never seen him look so happy and proud. Is this true, Marcus? Do you like playing piano? I love it, Mom. I made beautiful sounds come out of the piano with my fingers. Mrs. Henderson says I am good at it. Can I learn more songs, please? Sarah felt tears starting to form in her eyes. She had spent so many years watching other people treat Marcus like he could not do anything well. Teachers always talked about what he could not learn and what he could not do. Now here was a teacher saying that Marcus was actually good at something, but Sarah was also worried. She knew that Marcus's feelings could be hurt easily. What if he tried to learn piano and found out it was too difficult for him? What if other people made fun of him for thinking he could play music? She did not want to see her son disappointed. Mrs. Henderson could see the worry in Sarah's eyes. Mrs. Williams, I understand that you want to protect Marcus, but I have been teaching music for 15 years and I can recognize real talent when I see it. Marcus has something special. He hears music differently than other people. That could be a wonderful gift if we help him develop it. But what if it is too hard for him? Sarah asked quietly. What if it is not? Mrs. Henderson replied. What if this is exactly what Marcus needs to build confidence and find joy? I would be happy to give him piano lessons after school. We could start very slowly and see how he does. Marcus looked back and forth between his mother and his teacher. He could tell they were making an important decision about his future. His heart was beating fast with hope and excitement. Please, Mom, Marcus said quietly. I want to try. I promise I will practice hard. I want to learn how to make more beautiful music. Sarah looked at her son's hopeful face and made a decision that would change his life forever. Okay, Marcus. You can try piano lessons, but if it becomes too difficult or if it makes you sad, we will stop. Deal? Marcus jumped up and down with excitement. Deal. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. I am going to be the best piano player in the whole world. Mrs. Henderson smiled at his enthusiasm. She had no idea yet just how right Marcus might be. The next day, Marcus could barely sit still during his regular classes. He kept thinking about the piano lesson he would have after school. During math class, instead of focusing on addition problems, he moved his fingers on his desk like he was playing piano keys. During reading time, he hummed Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star so quietly that only he could hear it. Miss Rodriguez noticed that Marcus seemed different today. He was more excited than usual, and he kept looking at the clock on the wall. When she asked him what he was thinking about, Marcus told her about learning to play piano with Mrs. Henderson. That sounds wonderful, Marcus, Miss Rodriguez said. I am very proud of you for trying something new. But not everyone at school was happy about Marcus learning piano. During lunch, Marcus was so excited that he told the boy sitting next to him about his piano lesson. The boy's name was Jake Morrison, and he was known for being mean to other kids. You think you can play piano? Jake laughed. Piano is hard. It's for smart kids, not kids like you. You will probably just make noise that sounds terrible. Some other kids at nearby tables heard Jake and started laughing too. Yeah, Marcus, said a girl named Ashley. Piano takes a lot of brain power. Maybe you should try something easier, like playing with blocks. Marcus felt his face get hot and red. The happy feeling in his chest started to go away. But then he remembered the beautiful sound that came from the piano when he pressed the keys yesterday. He remembered how proud Mrs. Henderson looked when he played the song correctly. I can do it, Marcus said quietly. Mrs. Henderson says I have talent. Jake laughed even louder. Mrs. Henderson is just being nice because she feels sorry for you. Teachers always tell kids like you that you are good at things even when you are not. Marcus did not say anything else, but he made a decision in his heart. He would show Jake and all the other kids that he could learn to play piano. He would practice harder than anyone had ever practiced before. When school ended, Marcus practically ran to the music room. Mrs. Henderson was already there, waiting for him with a smile. She had prepared some very simple music books with large pictures and easy songs. Today we are going to learn about the piano keyboard, Mrs. Henderson said. See how there are white keys and black keys? Each key makes a different sound, and when we put the sounds together in the right order, we make music. Marcus listened very carefully to everything Mrs. Henderson said. She showed him how to sit up straight on the piano bench and how to curve his fingers like he was holding small balls. She taught him the names of the white keys, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then it started over again with C. The piano keyboard is like a pattern that repeats itself, Mrs. Henderson explained. Once you learn the pattern, you can find any note you want. Marcus understood this idea right away. He liked patterns. At home, he arranged his toys in patterns. He liked to line up his toy cars from biggest to smallest or arrange his books by color. The piano keyboard was just another kind of pattern, and Marcus was very good at understanding patterns. By the end of his first real lesson, Marcus could play 3 simple songs, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, Mary Had a Little Lamb, and Happy Birthday. But what surprised Mrs. Henderson again was that Marcus kept adding his own little changes to make the songs sound more interesting. Marcus, where do these extra notes come from? She asked. Did you learn them somewhere else? Marcus looked confused by the question. They just sound right in my head. When I play the regular song, I hear other notes that would make it sound prettier. Is it wrong to play them? Mrs. Henderson shook her head quickly. No, it is not wrong at all. It is very special. Most people have to study music for years before they can add their own ideas to songs. You are doing it naturally. Every day after school, Marcus had piano lessons with Mrs. Henderson. She taught him new songs and showed him how to read the notes written on paper. Reading music was easier for Marcus than reading words. The black dots on the white lines made sense to him in a way that letters and words sometimes did not. At home, Marcus's parents could see a big change in their son. He was happier and more confident. He sang songs around the house and tapped out rhythms on the kitchen table. His father, David, decided to surprise Marcus by buying a small electronic keyboard for his bedroom. When Marcus saw the keyboard, he cried tears of joy. "Now I can practice at home too," he said. He hugged his father so tight that David felt tears in his own eyes. Marcus began practicing on his bedroom keyboard every morning before school and every evening before bed. His mother could hear him playing the same songs over and over, but she never asked him to stop. The music made Marcus happy, and that made her happy too. At school, however, things were getting more difficult for Marcus. Word had spread that he was taking piano lessons, and some of the kids thought it was very funny. During recess, Jake Morrison would pretend to play an invisible piano and make terrible sounds with his voice. "Look at me, I'm Marcus," Jake would say, banging his hands on an imaginary keyboard. "I'm a piano genius." All the kids around him would laugh and clap. Marcus tried to ignore the teasing, but it hurt his feelings. Sometimes he wondered if Jake was right. Maybe Mrs. Henderson was just being nice to him. Maybe he really was not good at piano. But then he would remember how the music sounded when he played it, and he knew that Jake was wrong. One day, Marcus was practicing in the music room after school when a group of kids walked by the window. They stopped and looked in at him playing. Marcus could see them pointing and laughing. Some of them made faces at him through the glass. Marcus felt so embarrassed that he stopped playing and put his hands in his lap. Mrs. Henderson noticed that Marcus had stopped. "What is wrong?" she asked. Marcus pointed to the window where the kids were still watching. "They think I look funny when I play piano. They think I am weird." Mrs. Henderson walked to the window and opened it. "Excuse me," she said to the kids outside. "Marcus is trying to practice. Please move along." The kids walked away, but Marcus could still hear them laughing. Mrs. Henderson came back and sat beside him on the piano bench. "Marcus, do you remember what I told you about having a special gift for music?" she asked. Marcus nodded. "Well, sometimes when people have special gifts, other people do not understand it at first. They might laugh or make jokes because they are confused or jealous, but that does not mean your gift is not real." "But what if they are right?" Marcus asked quietly. "What if I am just making noise and it does not really sound good?" Mrs. Henderson thought for a moment. Then she had an idea. "Marcus, I want you to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star the way you like to play it with all your extra notes. But this time, I'm going to record it on my phone so you can hear how it really sounds." Marcus played the song while Mrs. Henderson recorded it. When he finished, she played the recording back for him. Marcus listened with amazement. The music sounded even more beautiful than he remembered. His extra notes and changes made the simple song sound like something a professional musician might play. "Marcus, does that sound like noise to you?" Mrs. Henderson asked. Marcus shook his head. "It sounds beautiful. It sounds like real music." "That is because it is real music," Mrs. Henderson said. "You created that beauty with your own hands and your own musical ideas. No one can take that away from you, no matter what they say." From that day on, Marcus decided not to let the other kids' teasing stop him from learning piano. He practiced even harder than before. Mrs. Henderson taught him more complicated songs, and Marcus learned them faster than she had ever seen any student learn. After 2 months of lessons, Marcus could play 10 different songs from memory. He could read simple sheet music, and he was starting to learn songs that used both hands at the same time. But the most amazing thing was that Marcus continued to add his own musical ideas to every song he learned. Mrs. Henderson began to realize that Marcus was not just learning to play piano. He was becoming a real musician. She had taught many students over the years, but she had never seen anyone with Marcus's natural feeling for music. He understood rhythm, melody, and harmony in ways that seemed to come from deep inside him. One afternoon, Mrs. Henderson made an important decision. She called Marcus's mother and asked her to come to the school for a special meeting. When Sarah arrived at the music room, she found Marcus playing a song she had never heard before. It was beautiful and complicated, with both hands moving at different times across the keyboard. When Marcus finished playing, Mrs. Henderson and his mother clapped enthusiastically. "Mrs. Williams," Mrs. Henderson said, "I need to talk to you about Marcus's progress. In 3 months, he has learned more than most of my students learn in 2 years. He is not just playing songs, he is creating music. I think Marcus needs more advanced lessons than I can give him here at school." Sarah looked worried. "What do you mean? Are you saying you cannot teach him anymore?" "I am saying that Marcus has outgrown what I can offer him," Mrs. Henderson explained. "He needs a teacher who specializes in working with advanced students. Marcus could become a serious musician if he gets the right training." Sarah felt scared and excited at the same time. She was proud that Marcus was doing so well, but spring arrived at Lincoln Elementary with warm sunshine and flowers blooming in the school garden. Marcus had been taking lessons with Mr. Chen at the downtown music school for 3 months. The new teacher was amazed by Marcus's progress and natural musical ability. Marcus was now learning pieces by famous composers like Bach and Mozart. Every day, Marcus felt more confident about his piano playing. At home, he practiced for 2 hours each evening on the small keyboard his father had bought him. His parents could hear him playing beautiful, complicated music that sounded like it belonged in a concert hall. But at school, most kids still did not know how much Marcus had improved. He still ate lunch alone, and he still heard whispers and giggles when he walked down the hallway. Jake Morrison and his friends continued to make jokes about Marcus thinking he could play piano. One Monday morning in April, something happened that would change everything. Principal Davis came into Marcus's classroom with a big smile on her face and a colorful poster in her hands. "Good morning, everyone," Principal Davis said. "I have exciting news to share with you all. It is time for our annual spring talent show." All the kids in the classroom started talking excitedly. The talent show was one of the most popular events at Lincoln Elementary. Students could sing, dance, do magic tricks, or show off any special skill they had. Parents and families came to watch, and there were always prizes for the best performances. Principal Davis held up the bright poster. It had pictures of musical notes, theater masks, and dancing figures. At the top, in big bold letters, it said Lincoln Elementary Spring Talent Show, Friday, May 15th. "The talent show will be held in our gymnasium," Principal Davis continued. "Any student who wants to perform must sign up by this Friday. That gives you 1 week to decide what you want to do and to practice your act." As soon as Principal Davis finished talking, hands shot up all around the classroom. Kids were already planning what they would do for the talent show. Sarah Mitchell wanted to sing her favorite pop song. Tommy Rodriguez planned to do a skateboarding demonstration. The Williams twins were going to perform a dance routine they had been practicing. Marcus listened to all the excited chatter around him, and his heart started beating faster. He knew exactly what he wanted to do for the talent show. He wanted to play piano. For months he had been learning beautiful music, and now he had a chance to share it with everyone. But as Marcus thought about performing in front of the whole school, he started to feel nervous. What if he made mistakes? What if people laughed at him? What if Jake Morrison was right and he really was not as good as he thought? During recess, Marcus walked to his favorite spot behind the music room to think. Mrs. Henderson found him there, sitting quietly under the big oak tree. "You look like you are thinking about something important," Mrs. Henderson said, sitting down beside him on the grass. "Principal Davis told us about the talent show," Marcus said. "I want to play piano, but I am scared." "What are you scared of?" Mrs. Henderson asked gently. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "What if I am not really good? What if everyone laughs at me? Jake Morrison always says I am just pretending to be a piano player." Mrs. Henderson felt angry that kids were still being mean to Marcus, but she kept her voice calm and kind. "Marcus, I have heard you play piano many times. Mr. Chen tells me you are one of his most talented students. You are not pretending to be a piano player. You are a piano player." "But what if I get nervous and forget how to play?" Marcus asked. "That could happen to any performer," Mrs. Henderson said. "Even professional musicians get nervous sometimes. But do you know what the best musicians do when they feel scared?" Marcus shook his head. "They remember why they love music in the first place," Mrs. Henderson said. "They remember that music is about sharing something beautiful with other people. When you play piano, Marcus, you are not just pressing keys. You are sharing a piece of your heart." Marcus thought about what Mrs. Henderson said. When he played piano, he did feel like he was sharing something special. The music that came from his fingers felt like it was coming from somewhere deep inside him. "I think I want to try," Marcus said quietly. But what song should I play? Mrs. Henderson smiled. What is your favorite piece that you have learned with Mr. Chen? Marcus did not have to think about that question. Beethoven's Ode to Joy. It makes me feel happy and strong when I play it. Mr. Chen says I play it with real feeling. That sounds perfect, Mrs. Henderson said. It is a beautiful piece and it shows how much you have learned. That afternoon, Marcus stayed after school to practice his piece in the music room. As he played, he imagined performing on the big stage in the gymnasium. The thought still made him nervous, but it also made him excited. The next day at lunch, Marcus made a brave decision. He walked over to the table where Jake Morrison was sitting with his friends. Jake, Marcus said, his voice shaking a little, I am going to sign up for the talent show. I am going to play piano. Jake looked up from his sandwich and started laughing. Are you serious? You really think you can get up on stage and play piano in front of everyone? Yes, Marcus said, standing up straighter. I have been taking lessons and I am good at it. Jake's friends started laughing too. This is going to be hilarious, said one boy. We will finally get to see how bad you really are at piano. Yeah, said Ashley, who was sitting nearby. It will be like watching a train wreck. Everyone will feel sorry for you. Marcus felt his face getting red, but he did not walk away. You will see, he said quietly. You will see that I can really play. As Marcus walked back to his table, he could hear Jake and his friends still laughing and making jokes. But instead of feeling sad, Marcus felt determined. He was going to show them all that they were wrong about him. Word about Marcus signing up for the talent show spread quickly through the school. By the end of the day, it seemed like everyone knew that the boy with Down syndrome thought he could play piano in front of the whole school. Some kids were excited to see what would happen. Others felt sorry for Marcus and thought he was setting himself up for embarrassment. A few kids thought it was brave of him to try, even if they did not think he would be very good. When Marcus got home that day, he told his parents about his decision to perform in the talent show. His mother looked worried, just like she had when Mrs. Henderson first suggested piano lessons. Are you sure you want to do this, Marcus? Sarah asked. There will be a lot of people watching. What if you get too nervous to play? I want to try, Mom, Marcus said. I want to show everyone the music I have learned. Mr. Chen says I am ready to perform for people. David, Marcus's father, put his hand on his son's shoulder. If you want to do this, Marcus, your mother and I will support you. But you need to understand that some people might not appreciate your music the way we do. I know, Dad, Marcus said. But I think if people really listen to the music, they will like it. Mrs. Henderson says music can change people's hearts. That evening, Marcus called Mr. Chen to tell him about the talent show. His piano teacher was very excited about Marcus's decision to perform. That is wonderful news, Marcus, Mr. Chen said. Performing for an audience is an important part of being a musician. It will help you grow as a player. I want to play Ode to Joy, Marcus said. Is that a good choice? That is an excellent choice, Mr. Chen replied. It is a piece that shows both your technical skill and your musical feeling. We will spend our next few lessons making sure you are completely prepared. The next day, Marcus walked into the main office during lunchtime to sign up for the talent show. Mrs. Peterson, the school secretary, looked surprised when she saw his name on the sign-up sheet. What will you be doing for your act, Marcus? She asked kindly. I am going to play piano, Marcus said proudly. Mrs. Peterson wrote piano performance next to Marcus's name on the list. As she wrote, Marcus could see all the other acts that students had signed up for. There were singers, dancers, a magic act, a comedy routine, and even someone who was going to juggle. Marcus was the only person signed up to play a musical instrument by himself. Looking at all the other names on the list, he suddenly realized how big this talent show was going to be. There would be hundreds of people in the audience, students, parents, teachers, and families from the whole community. For a moment, Marcus felt scared again. But then he thought about the beautiful music of Beethoven's Ode to Joy and how it made him feel when he played it. He thought about Mrs. Henderson saying that music was about sharing something beautiful with other people. Marcus decided that no matter what happened, he was going to share his music with everyone. He was going to show them that someone like him could create something beautiful. He was going to prove that Jake Morrison and all the other kids who laughed at him were wrong. As Marcus walked back to his classroom, he passed by a group of older kids in the hallway. One of them pointed at him and said to his friends, That's the kid who thinks he can play piano for the talent show. This is going to be so embarrassing. But Marcus just kept walking. He had made his decision and he was not going to change his mind. In 3 weeks, he would be on stage playing Beethoven in front of everyone he knew. And the 3 weeks before the talent show passed both quickly and slowly for Marcus. Every day felt like it lasted forever, because he was so excited and nervous about his performance. But at the same time, the days seemed to fly by because there was so much to prepare. Marcus practiced Ode to Joy every single day. At home, he played it on his small keyboard until his parents could hum along with every note. At school, Mrs. Henderson let him use the music room piano during lunch to practice. After school, he worked with Mr. Chen to perfect every detail of the piece. "Remember, Marcus," Mr. Chen said during one of their lessons, "this piece is about joy and happiness. When you play it, think about all the things that make you feel joyful. Let that feeling flow through your fingers to the keys." Marcus nodded seriously. When he played Ode to Joy, he thought about the first time he touched a piano key and heard that beautiful sound. He thought about his parents' proud faces when they listened to him play. He thought about Mrs. Henderson believing in him when no one else did. But while Marcus was preparing for his performance, the rest of the school was preparing too, just not in the way he hoped. Word about Marcus's piano performance had spread far beyond Lincoln Elementary. Parents were talking about it at the grocery store and at their jobs. Some people thought it was sweet that the school was letting Marcus perform, even though they expected it would not go very well. Others worried that it might be embarrassing for everyone involved. At school, the talent show had become the main topic of conversation. Students talked about their acts during lunch, before class, and on the playground. When they talked about Marcus's performance, the conversations usually sounded the same. "I feel bad for him," said one 6th grade girl. "He really thinks he can play piano, but he probably does not know how it will sound to other people." "My mom says we should clap for him no matter what," said another student. "She says it takes courage for him to get on stage." "I heard he's going to play some really hard classical music," said a boy in Marcus's class. "There is no way he can actually play that stuff. He can barely read regular words." Jake Morrison had become the unofficial leader of the group of kids who thought Marcus's performance would be a disaster. During recess, Jake would gather other kids around him and make predictions about what would happen. "I bet he will forget how to play as soon as he gets on stage," Jake said one day. "He will just sit there and not know what to do. Or maybe he will play, but it will sound so bad that people will start laughing." "That would be so embarrassing," said Ashley. "Why is Mrs. Henderson letting him do this? She should know he is going to make a fool of himself." But not everyone at school felt this way. There were some students and teachers who remembered how much Marcus had improved over the past year. Miss Rodriguez, Marcus's regular teacher, had noticed that Marcus seemed more confident and happy since he started taking piano lessons. "I think Marcus might surprise some people," Miss Rodriguez said to Mrs. Henderson one day. "He has been working very hard on his music and I can see how much it means to him." Mrs. Henderson agreed completely. She had watched Marcus grow from a shy boy who could barely play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star to a serious young musician who could tackle challenging classical pieces. But she also worried about how the audience would react to his performance. "I just hope people will really listen to his music instead of focusing on his differences," Mrs. Henderson said. As the talent show got closer, the pressure on Marcus began to build in ways he had not expected. Well-meaning adults started giving him advice that made him more nervous. Mrs. Peterson, the school secretary, stopped him in the hallway one day. "Marcus, honey, I think it is wonderful that you are performing in the talent show. Just remember, if you get nervous and cannot finish your song, that is okay. Everyone will understand." The school custodian, Mr. Garcia, patted Marcus on the head and said, "You are very brave to get up on that stage, son. Do not worry if you make mistakes. Just do your best." Even some of Marcus's relatives started expressing concerns. His aunt called his mother and said, "Sarah, are you sure this is a good idea? What if Marcus gets upset when people do not react the way he hopes? Maybe he should just watch the talent show from the audience this year." All of these comments were meant to be kind and supportive, but they had the opposite effect on Marcus. He began to realize that most people expected him to fail. They were not excited to hear his music. They were just hoping he would not embarrass himself too badly. One evening, after a particularly difficult day at school, Marcus sat in his room feeling discouraged. His mother found him staring out the window instead of practicing piano like he usually did. "What is wrong, sweetheart?" Sarah asked, sitting on his bed beside him. "Everyone thinks I'm going to be bad at the talent show," Marcus said quietly. "They keep telling me it is okay if I mess up. But I do not want to mess up. I want to play beautiful music." Sarah felt her heart break a little. She had been having her own worries about the talent show, but seeing her son's sadness made her realize something important. "Marcus," she said, "do you remember when you first started taking piano lessons? And I was worried it might be too hard for you?" Marcus nodded. "I was wrong to worry about that," Sarah continued. "You proved that you could learn to play piano better than I ever imagined. Maybe all these people who are worried about your performance will be wrong too." "But what if they are right?" Marcus asked. "What if I get on stage and I cannot play the song?" Sarah thought carefully about how to answer. "Marcus, you have been playing Ode to Joy perfectly for weeks now. Mr. Chen says you are ready to perform it. Mrs. Henderson believes in you. Your father and I believe in you. Most importantly, you believe in yourself, right?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "When I play piano, I feel like I can do anything. The music makes me feel strong and happy. But when other people talk about the talent show, I start feeling scared." "Then maybe you should focus on the music instead of what other people are saying," Sarah suggested. "When you get on that stage, it will just be you and the piano and Beethoven's beautiful song. All those other voices will not matter anymore." Marcus smiled for the first time in days. "You're right, Mom. I love playing Ode to Joy. I want to share it with everyone, even if they do not think I can do it." The next day at school, Marcus made a decision. He stopped listening to what other kids were saying about the talent show. When Jake Morrison made jokes about his upcoming performance, Marcus just walked away. When well-meaning adults told him not to worry about making mistakes, he politely thanked them, but did not let their words affect his confidence. Instead, Marcus focused all his attention on his music. During lunch, he practiced in the music room with a new kind of determination. He played Ode to Joy over and over, but not because he was worried about forgetting it. He played it because he loved it, and because each time he played it, he discovered something new and beautiful in the melody. Mrs. Henderson noticed the change in Marcus immediately. "You seem different today," she said after listening to him practice. "More confident." "I decided to stop worrying about what people think," Marcus said. "I just want to play beautiful music for them. If they like it, that is wonderful. If they do not, at least I will know that I shared something I love." Mrs. Henderson smiled proudly. "That is exactly the right attitude for a real musician, Marcus. When you perform, you should play for the music itself, not for the audience's approval." As the talent show grew closer, other students were also preparing their acts. Sarah Mitchell practiced her pop song until she could hit every high note perfectly. Tommy Rodriguez learned new skateboarding tricks to impress the audience. The Williams twins rehearsed their dance routine until they could perform it with their eyes closed. But something was different about the way these students prepared compared to Marcus. They practiced to avoid making mistakes and to get applause from the audience. Marcus practiced because he loved the music and wanted to share that love with others. The difference was important, even though no one realized it yet. 3 days before the talent show, something unexpected happened. Mr. Chen called Marcus's house with exciting news. "Marcus," the piano teacher said, "I have been thinking about your performance and I want to make a suggestion. Instead of playing Ode to Joy on the school's old piano, what if we arranged for you to use a better instrument?" "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "The music school has a beautiful grand piano," Mr. Chen explained. "It is much better than the upright piano at your school. I spoke with the music school director and he said we could borrow it for your performance. Would you like that?" Marcus could hardly believe what he was hearing. A real grand piano? He had seen pictures of grand pianos in his music books, but he had never played one. "Yes," Marcus said excitedly. "That would be amazing." When Marcus told his parents and Mrs. Henderson about the grand piano, they were all surprised and thrilled. This meant that Marcus's performance would be even more special than they had imagined. But when word spread around school that Marcus would be playing on a professional grand piano, the reactions were mixed. Some people were impressed that the music school was. Friday, May 15th arrived with bright sunshine and a gentle spring breeze. Marcus woke up early, even though he had barely slept the night before. Today was the day of the talent show, and his stomach felt like it was full of butterflies doing somersaults. His mother made his favorite breakfast, pancakes with strawberries, but Marcus could only eat a few bites. He was too excited and nervous to be hungry. His father sat across from him at the kitchen table drinking coffee and reading the newspaper, but Marcus could tell that his dad was nervous too. "How are you feeling, son?" David asked, looking up from his paper. "Scared and excited at the same time," Marcus answered honestly. "Is that normal?" David smiled. "That sounds exactly like how a real performer should feel before a big show. Your mother and I are very proud of you, no matter what happens tonight." At school that day, Marcus had trouble concentrating on his regular classes. During math, he kept thinking about the piano piece he would play. During reading time, he moved his fingers on his desk like he was practicing the song. Miss Rodriguez noticed that Marcus seemed distracted, but she understood why. "Are you ready for tonight, Marcus?" she asked quietly during a break. "I think so," Marcus said. "I know the song very well. I just hope I do not get too nervous when I see all the people watching." "I will be in the audience cheering for you," Miss Rodriguez said. "Remember that you have friends there who want you to succeed." During lunch, Marcus was surprised when several classmates came over to his table to talk to him. These were kids who usually did not pay much attention to him. "I heard you are playing piano tonight," said Emma, a girl from his math class. "That sounds really cool. I did not know you could play piano." "My mom is coming to watch the show," said another boy named Carlos. "She said she is excited to hear you play classical music." Even some of the kids who had been doubtful about Marcus's performance seemed to be changing their minds. Maybe it was because they had heard about the grand piano being brought in specially for his act. Maybe it was because their parents had told them to be supportive. Or maybe they were genuinely curious to see what Marcus could do, but not everyone had changed their attitude. Jake Morrison was still making jokes and predictions about Marcus's performance failing. During recess, Jake gathered a group of kids around him and said, "I bet Marcus will sit down at that fancy piano and not be able to play anything. All this excitement is just going to make it more embarrassing when he messes up." Marcus heard Jake talking, but he did not let it bother him. He had made peace with the fact that some people would never believe in him until they heard him play. Tonight, he would let his music do the talking. After school, Marcus went home to rest and prepare for the evening performance. The talent show would start at 7 o'clock, and Marcus was scheduled to perform 5th out of 12 acts. Mr. Chen came to the house at 5 o'clock to help Marcus do some final practice and preparation. "How are you feeling, my young musician?" Mr. Chen asked when he arrived. "Ready," Marcus said with more confidence than he had felt all week. "I want to play this song for everyone. I want them to hear how beautiful it is." They went to Marcus's room where he played Ode to Joy on his small keyboard one last time. His performance was flawless. Every note was clear and precise, and the emotion in his playing was unmistakable. "Perfect," Mr. Chen said when Marcus finished. "You are ready to share your gift with the world." At 6 o'clock, the Williams family drove to Lincoln Elementary. As they pulled into the school parking lot, Marcus could see that it was already crowded with cars. Families were walking toward the gymnasium carrying flowers, cameras, and folding chairs. Inside the school, Marcus could hear the sounds of the other performers getting ready. In the hallway outside the gymnasium, students were practicing their acts one last time. Sarah Mitchell was doing vocal warm-ups for her song. The Williams twins were stretching before their dance routine. Tommy Rodriguez was checking his skateboard equipment. Marcus found Mrs. Henderson near the entrance to the gymnasium. She was wearing a beautiful blue dress and had a big smile on her face. "There is my star performer," she said, giving Marcus a gentle hug. "Are you ready to show everyone what you can do?" "I am ready," Marcus said. "Where is the grand piano?" Mrs. Henderson led Marcus into the gymnasium, and he gasped when he saw it. The grand piano was positioned in the center of the stage, gleaming black under the bright lights. It was the most beautiful instrument Marcus had ever seen. "Can I try it?" Marcus asked. "Of course," Mrs. Henderson said, "but just for a minute. The audience will be coming in soon." Marcus walked up onto the stage and sat down at the piano bench. The keys felt smooth and perfect under his fingers. When he pressed one key gently, the sound that came out was rich and pure, much more beautiful than any piano he had ever played. He played just the first few notes of Ode to Joy, and the sound filled the entire gymnasium. Even those few notes sounded magical on the grand piano. "Wow," Marcus whispered to himself. "This is going to be amazing." By 7 o'clock, the gymnasium was packed with people. The bleachers were full of families and extra chairs had been set up on the floor for the overflow crowd. Marcus peeked out from behind the stage curtain and saw more people than he had expected. There had to be at least 300 people in the audience. He saw his parents sitting in the third row right in the center. His mother was holding a bouquet of flowers for him. His father had brought their video camera to record the performance. Marcus also spotted Miss Rodriguez, Principal Davis, and many other teachers from the school. But Marcus also noticed something else. Many people in the audience were holding cell phones and small cameras. He realized that they were planning to record all the performances, including his. The thought made him a little more nervous, but also more excited. If he played well, people would be able to watch it again and again. Principal Davis walked onto the stage to welcome everyone and introduce the first act. "Good evening, families and friends," she said into the microphone. "Welcome to Lincoln Elementary's annual Spring Talent Show. We have 12 wonderful performances for you tonight, showcasing the amazing talents of our students." The first act was a magic show performed by 2 fifth-grade boys. They did card tricks and made scarves disappear and reappear. The audience clapped and laughed at all the right moments. Marcus watched from backstage, trying to stay calm. The second act was Sarah Mitchell singing a popular song from the radio. Her voice was strong and clear, and she hit all the high notes perfectly. The audience gave her enthusiastic applause, and Marcus could see people recording her performance on their phones. The third act was the Williams twins doing their dance routine to upbeat music. They had practiced so much that their movements were perfectly synchronized. The audience clapped along with the music and cheered when the twins finished with a dramatic pose. The fourth act was Tommy Rodriguez demonstrating skateboard tricks. He had set up a small ramp on one side of the stage, and he performed jumps and spins that impressed everyone. The audience gasped and applauded as he completed each difficult trick. Then it was time for Marcus's performance. Mrs. Henderson walked onto the stage to introduce him. The gymnasium grew quiet as she approached the microphone. "Our next performer is Marcus Williams," she said, her voice clear and proud. "Marcus will be playing Beethoven's Ode to Joy on the piano. This is a challenging classical piece that requires both technical skill and emotional expression. Please welcome Marcus Williams." The audience applauded politely as Marcus walked onto the stage. He could feel hundreds of eyes watching him as he made his way to the piano bench. Some people were still holding up their phones to record, but Marcus noticed that many others had put their phones down and were just staring at him with curious expressions. Marcus adjusted the height of the piano bench and positioned himself carefully. He took a deep breath and looked out at the audience one more time. He saw his parents' encouraging faces. He saw Mrs. Henderson standing at the side of the stage, giving him a thumbs up. He saw Miss Rodriguez smiling at him from the third row. But he also saw other expressions in the audience. Some people looked skeptical, as if they were waiting to see if he would actually be able to play. Others looked worried, as if they were hoping he would not embarrass himself. A few people in the back were whispering to each other and pointing at him. Marcus even spotted Jake Morrison sitting with his family near the back of the gymnasium. Jake had his arms crossed and a smirk on his face, as if he was expecting to enjoy watching Marcus fail. For just a moment, Marcus felt all his old fears coming back. What if everyone was right? What if he really could not play as well as he thought? What if he made mistakes and disappointed everyone who believed in him? But then Marcus looked down at the beautiful black and white keys of the grand piano. He remembered the first time he had touched a piano key and heard that magical sound. He remembered all the hours of practice, all the joy he felt when he played music, and all the support he had received from Mrs. Henderson, Mr. Chen, and his parents. Most importantly, he remembered why he wanted to perform in the first place. It was not to prove anything to Jake Morrison or the other kids who had laughed at him. It was not even to... The first notes of Beethoven's Ode to Joy rang out through the gymnasium with a clarity and beauty that no one had expected. The grand piano's rich sound filled every corner of the large room, and Marcus's fingers moved across the keys with confidence and precision. In the first few seconds, some people in the audience were still whispering to each other or adjusting their positions in their seats. A few were still holding up cell phones to record what they expected might be an awkward performance. But as Marcus continued to play, something remarkable began to happen. The whispers stopped. The rustling and movement in the bleachers gradually came to a halt. People who had been looking at their phones or talking to their neighbors slowly turned their attention to the boy at the piano. Marcus was completely absorbed in his music. His face showed a peaceful concentration that transformed his usual shy expression into something confident and serene. His fingers danced across the keys with a grace that seemed impossible for someone who had been taking lessons for less than a year. But it was not just the technical skill that surprised everyone. It was the emotion that poured from every note Marcus played. The melody soared and dipped with a feeling that touched something deep in the hearts of everyone listening. This was not just a boy playing piano. This was a young musician sharing his soul through Beethoven's immortal composition. Sarah Williams, Marcus's mother, felt tears begin to form in her eyes as she watched her son. She had heard him practice this piece hundreds of times at home, but somehow it sounded even more beautiful tonight. Maybe it was the grand piano, or maybe it was the setting, but Marcus was playing with an emotion and maturity that took her breath away. Mrs. Henderson stood at the side of the stage, hardly daring to breathe. She had known Marcus was talented, but seeing him perform like this in front of such a large audience was beyond her wildest hopes. Every note was perfect. Every phrase was shaped with musical understanding that many adult pianists would envy. In the audience, Miss Rodriguez wiped away a tear and thought about all the times she had seen Marcus struggle in her classroom. The boy who had difficulty reading simple sentences was now interpreting one of the most complex and beautiful pieces of music ever written. She realized that Marcus had found his own special language, the language of music. Even Principal Davis, who had been worried about how Marcus's performance might go, found herself completely mesmerized by what she was hearing. She had attended dozens of school talent shows over the years, but she had never heard anything quite like this. As Marcus moved into the middle section of the piece, his playing became even more expressive. His left hand provided a steady rhythmic foundation while his right hand sang out the melody, with phrases that seemed to breathe and flow like natural speech. Every note was placed with intention and feeling. The audience was now completely silent. The gymnasium, which had been filled with the usual sounds of a crowded event, had become as quiet as a concert hall. Even the youngest children in the audience seemed to sense that something special was happening, and sat perfectly still. Jake Morrison, who had spent months making jokes about Marcus's piano playing, found himself staring at the stage with his mouth slightly open. The music Marcus was creating was nothing like what Jake had expected. It was sophisticated, moving, and undeniably beautiful. For the first time, Jake began to understand that he had been completely wrong about Marcus's abilities. Ashley, who had laughed at the idea of Marcus performing classical music, felt ashamed of her earlier comments. The boy she had thought could barely function in regular classes was now demonstrating a level of artistry that she could barely comprehend. She realized that she had judged Marcus based on his differences without ever trying to understand his strengths. As Marcus approached the famous main theme of Ode to Joy, the music became even more powerful. This was the melody that Beethoven had written to celebrate the joy of human brotherhood and the beauty of life itself. In Marcus's hands, every note seemed to glow with meaning and purpose. The boy's interpretation was not just technically correct, it was deeply musical. He understood the structure of the piece, building tension and release in all the right places. He varied his touch on the keys to create different colors and textures in the sound. Most amazingly, he added subtle personal touches to the phrasing that made the familiar melody sound fresh and new. Mr. Chen, Marcus's piano teacher, was watching from the back of the gymnasium with tears of pride in his eyes. He had worked with many students over the years, but Marcus was truly special. The boy had an intuitive understanding of music that could not be taught. It could only be nurtured and encouraged. As the piece continued, people in the audience began to forget everything except the music. Parents who had come expecting to watch a cute but amateur performance by a special needs child found themselves transported by the beauty of what they were hearing. This was not a novelty act or a feel-good moment. This was genuine musical artistry. Some audience members had never heard classical music performed live before. They were discovering for the first time how powerful and moving such music could be when played by someone who truly understood it. Marcus was not just playing Beethoven's notes. He was sharing Beethoven's vision of joy and human connection. Even people who were familiar with classical music were amazed by Marcus's performance. They recognized that what they were hearing was extraordinary, not just for a 12-year-old boy with Down syndrome, but for any pianist of any age. Marcus was playing with a level of musical maturity that typically took years of study and experience to develop. As Marcus moved into the final section of the piece, his playing became even more confident and expressive. He had completely forgotten about the audience, the cameras, and all the people who had doubted his abilities. There was only the music, flowing from his heart through his fingers to the piano keys. The melody built to its climactic moments with power and grandeur. Marcus's technique was flawless. Every run and passage was clear and precise. But more importantly, his musical vision was compelling and moving. He understood that Ode to Joy was about celebration and triumph, and he made every listener feel that joy. In the audience, David Williams watched his son with overwhelming pride and emotion. He thought about all the challenges Marcus had faced in his young life, all the times people had underestimated him or treated him as less capable than other children. Now Marcus was proving that talent and passion could overcome any obstacle. The music reached its final crescendo, with Marcus playing both hands in perfect coordination to create the full, rich sound that Beethoven had envisioned. The melody soared above the accompaniment like a bird taking flight, carrying with it all the hope and joy that the composer had put into his masterpiece. As Marcus played the final measures of the piece, he finally allowed himself to think about the audience again, but instead of feeling nervous or worried, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction and peace. He had shared something beautiful with hundreds of people, and he could feel that they had truly heard and appreciated it. The last note rang out in the silent gymnasium, sustained by the grand piano's rich resonance. Marcus lifted his hands from the keys and sat very still for a moment, letting the final sound fade away naturally. Then he looked up at the audience for the first time since he had begun playing. What he saw took his breath away. Hundreds of people were sitting in complete silence, many with tears in their eyes. Some were staring at him with expressions of amazement and wonder. Others were looking down at their hands, still processing the beauty of what they had just heard. The silence stretched on and on. It was not an uncomfortable silence or an awkward pause. It was the kind of silence that follows a truly moving performance. The silence of people who need a moment to absorb what they have just experienced. Marcus had played for less than 4 minutes, but in that brief time, he had changed the way every person in that gymnasium thought about music, about talent, and about the power of determination and passion. He had proven that true artistry recognizes no boundaries and that the human spirit can achieve remarkable things when given the chance to flourish. The silence continued, profound and meaningful. It was a silence that spoke louder than any words could have. It was a silence that said, "We understand now. We were wrong. We are sorry we doubted. What we just heard was truly extraordinary." Marcus sat at the piano bench looking out at all those silent faces and realized that his music had done exactly what Mrs. Henderson had told him it could do. It had changed hearts. It had opened minds. It had created a moment of pure beauty that no one in that gymnasium would ever forget. The silence was the greatest compliment Marcus could have received. It meant that his music had moved people so deeply that they needed time to find their voices again. And in just a few more seconds, they would find those voices, and the gymnasium would explode with the most thunderous and heartfelt applause that Lincoln Elementary had ever heard. The silence in the gymnasium seemed to last forever, but it was probably only 10 or 15 seconds. Then slowly one person began to clap. It was Mrs. Henderson. She stood up at the side of the stage and began applauding with tears streaming down her face. Her clapping was slow and deliberate, as if each clap was a way of saying thank you for the beautiful music she had just heard. Next, Principal Davis rose from her seat in the front row. She had been completely transfixed by Marcus's performance, and now she was clapping with genuine admiration and amazement. She had expected to feel proud of Marcus for trying his best, but instead she felt awed by the artistry he had displayed. Then Marcus's parents stood up together. Sarah Williams was crying openly now, not from sadness but from overwhelming joy and pride. David Williams was clapping so enthusiastically that his hands were already starting to hurt, but he did not care. His son had just accomplished something truly extraordinary. One by one, more people throughout the gymnasium began to stand and applaud. Miss Rodriguez was on her feet, clapping and wiping tears from her eyes. Mr. Chen was applauding from the back of the room, beaming with pride at his remarkable student. The applause grew louder and more enthusiastic as more people joined in. But this was not just polite, encouraging applause like Marcus had feared he might receive. This was genuine, heartfelt appreciation for a truly outstanding musical performance. Within 30 seconds, the entire gymnasium was on its feet. 300 people were clapping, cheering, and many were crying. The sound was thunderous, echoing off the walls and ceiling of the large room. It was the kind of applause that professional musicians dream of receiving at the end of a perfect concert. Marcus sat at the piano bench, looking out at all those standing, clapping people, and he could hardly believe what he was seeing. These were the same people who had doubted him, who had whispered about him, who had expected him to fail. Now they were giving him the most enthusiastic ovation he could have imagined. But what moved Marcus most was not just the applause itself. It was the expressions on people's faces. He could see genuine emotion and appreciation in their eyes. They were not clapping because they felt sorry for him or because they wanted to be polite. They were clapping because his music had truly touched their hearts. Jake Morrison was standing and clapping too, although he looked confused and ashamed. For months, he had made fun of Marcus and predicted that his piano performance would be embarrassing. Now Jake was face to face with the reality that he had been completely wrong. Marcus was not just a good piano player. He was an exceptional musician. Ashley was also on her feet, applauding with tears in her eyes. She kept thinking about all the mean things she had said about Marcus trying to play classical music. She felt terrible about her comments and amazed by what she had just witnessed. The applause continued for what felt like several minutes. People were not just clapping. They were cheering, whistling, and shouting things like "bravo" and "amazing." Some parents were holding up their cell phones, not to record Marcus looking foolish as they had originally planned, but to capture this incredible moment of triumph. Marcus finally stood up from the piano bench and took a small bow, just like Mr. Chen had taught him to do after a performance. This made the audience cheer even louder. Several people shouted more, hoping that Marcus would play another piece. But Marcus was content with what he had shared. He had played Ode to Joy exactly as he had wanted to, with feeling, with technical skill, and with the pure love of music that drove everything he did. He had accomplished his goal of sharing something beautiful with everyone. As Marcus walked off the stage, Mrs. Henderson met him with the biggest hug he had ever received. "Marcus," she said, her voice shaking with emotion, "that was absolutely perfect. I am so proud of you I can barely speak." "Did people really like it?" Marcus asked, although the answer was obvious from the continuing applause. "Marcus, that was one of the most beautiful performances I have ever heard," Mrs. Henderson said. "You did not just play the notes correctly, you made music. Real, moving, powerful music." Principal Davis approached them, still wiping tears from her eyes. "Marcus, I owe you an apology," she said. "I was worried about your performance tonight, but I should have trusted in your talent. What you just did up there was extraordinary." The talent show continued with the remaining acts, but everyone knew that Marcus's performance had been the highlight of the evening. The other students did their best and the audience was supportive and encouraging, but nothing could match the emotional impact of what Marcus had accomplished. When all the performances were finished, Principal Davis returned to the stage to thank everyone for coming and to announce the talent show winners. There were awards for different categories: Most Creative Act, Best Group Performance, Most Entertaining Act, and others. But when it came time to announce the winner of the overall Best Performance Award, there was no suspense at all. This year's winner of the Best Performance Award, Principal Davis announced, for a truly outstanding display of musical artistry, is Marcus Williams for his piano performance of Beethoven's Ode to Joy. The gymnasium erupted in applause once again as Marcus walked back onto the stage to receive his trophy. It was a golden statue of a musical note on a small pedestal, and to Marcus, it was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. As he held his trophy and looked out at the cheering audience, Marcus thought about how much his life had changed in just 1 year. 12 months ago, he had been a lonely boy who could only dream about making music. Tonight, he was standing on stage holding a trophy for the best performance at his school's talent show, but the real changes went much deeper than just winning an award. After the talent show ended, and families began to leave the gymnasium, something wonderful happened. Instead of rushing out to their cars, many people came over to talk to Marcus and his family. "Marcus, that was incredible," said Mrs. Johnson, whose daughter was in Marcus's class. "I had no idea you were such a talented musician." My daughter is going to start taking piano lessons because of your performance tonight. Young man, said Mr. Roberts, a grandfather who had come to watch his grandson perform. I have been listening to classical music for 60 years, and your performance was as good as any I have heard in a concert hall. Jake Morrison approached Marcus hesitantly, looking embarrassed and ashamed. Marcus, he said quietly, I owe you a big apology. I said a lot of mean things about you, and I was completely wrong. You are an amazing piano player, and I am sorry for being such a jerk. Marcus looked at Jake for a moment, then smiled. It is okay, Jake. Maybe now we can be friends instead of you being mean to me. Jake nodded eagerly. I would like that. And maybe you could teach me some piano sometime? I think I would like to learn. Even more surprising was what happened when Marcus returned to school the following Monday. Instead of being ignored or teased like usual, Marcus found himself surrounded by classmates who wanted to talk to him about his performance. Marcus, my whole family watched the video of you playing piano, said Emma. My mom posted it on social media and hundreds of people have watched it. Everyone is saying how amazing you are. Will you play piano at our spring concert? Asked Carlos. Mrs. Henderson said she might ask you to perform for the whole district. Can you teach me how to play Ode to Joy? Asked another student. I want to learn that song too. For the first time in his school life, Marcus was not eating lunch alone. Several students asked if they could sit with him, and the lunch table that had once been empty except for Marcus was now full of kids who wanted to be his friend. The change was not just in how other students treated Marcus. Teachers throughout the school began to see him differently too. They realized that Marcus had abilities and talents that they had never recognized before. Some teachers started finding ways to incorporate music into their lessons, knowing that Marcus might understand concepts better when they were presented through musical examples. But perhaps the most important change was in Marcus himself. The confidence he had gained from his successful performance carried over into all areas of his life. He began speaking up more in class, volunteering to answer questions and trying new activities that he had been too shy to attempt before. His reading improved because he was less afraid of making mistakes. His math skills got better because he approached problems with the same patience and persistence he used when learning new piano pieces. Even his handwriting became neater because the finger exercises he did for piano had strengthened his hand muscles. 3 weeks after the talent show, Mrs. Henderson received a phone call that would change Marcus's life even more. It was from the director of the city's Youth Symphony Orchestra. I saw the video of Marcus's performance, the director said. We would like to invite him to audition for our Young Artist program. If he is accepted, he would receive advanced piano instruction and the opportunity to perform with other gifted young musicians. When Marcus heard about this opportunity, he could hardly contain his excitement. The Youth Symphony was for the most talented young musicians in the entire city. A year ago, Marcus would never have dreamed that he could be considered for such a program.